남다츠는 세지 서지된 딩진밤이라는 거지 실험이데 남의 주변에서 tunjo 동건전의 착설로. Is it clear? Sure? Okay. 다음에 또 시작절에서 신점도 도지 번역 서지도 못 나올 줄 시작되게 착설로. 시제가 체력 친구 진제보다 도지는 저어된 보고는 선제보 가주는 보제라 자자로 직대 먼저 두지 조지시는 나서로 죽어서 그냥 저도 መስ고도 진짜 럽도 소 I'm feeling cold. Now I think when I go back to India, because the weather is very hot in India, then I will miss here. Okay, so I was supposed to talk about, yesterday original plan was to talk about Sutra of Three Sections and benefit of Vajrasattva mantra. And then today, maybe talk about Sutra of Dharma Chakra. But then, because this Sutra of Dharma Chakra, partly because yesterday I didn't have enough time to talk about Vajrasattva, I thought maybe I can talk like maybe for 15 minutes or something. But that would be too short. And then also because this, Dharma Chakra Sutra is very popular in Theravada tradition. In Tibetan Buddhism, we hardly read it, really. So there were some things which I wanted to clarify, and for that I was reading a commentary of that sutra by one Theravada monk. I think he was a great teacher. I don't know who he is, but she's really like talking on the point, And I think it has, it's quite big. I wasn't going through everything, but most of them. Let's just keep reading. And this morning there was 24 pages. Still is not ending. I thought maybe I can't finish it. So I have that PDF on my phone, and I checked how many pages does it have. I have finished reading until 224. I got tired. And then I checked. Turns out it has 225 pages. I could just go one and finish, I thought, okay, this is really too long, I can't go. It's very funny. So I want to read it, so that's why I decided to talk about Vajrasattva this morning. Okay? And I forgot to mention yesterday, even though it's quite, I'm sure every one of you know, that this year is known as the Dzong Karmapa, the 17th Dzong Karmapa. He talked about, he asked everyone, especially those who follow the Karmakaji tradition, to read Sutra of Three Sections 1,000 times, and Vajrasattva mantra 100,000 times. Sutra of Three Sections, I think, after the Karmapa made that announcement, I think I finished reading maybe around 600 or something. I think 600 times or something. But I really want to take some time to really finish it. It takes a lot of time. It's really not that easy. Most of the counting I did while I was in the car. Sometimes the journey is very long, so I just... Okay? So that's why, because so many of us read or chant it, so it's important to have some idea about it. And that's the reason I've been talking about it this time. So for the Vajrasattva, it will be quite challenging for me, I think. It's not that easy, because we don't have so much information about Vajrasattva, but I will try my best. And before that, I think, what to say? Maybe, maybe we need a little bit of understanding about this, what we call God or deity in Buddhism. Seems like not many people have correct understanding about it, I think. It's actually quite, it's vast. We have, like yesterday I talked about 3 traditions of Buddhism, so each tradition talks about deity or God in a certain way. And then together, understanding of overall idea of God or deities in Buddhism is not that easy. So first of all, one thing is very sure, that according to all traditions of Buddhism, there's no such thing as God who created everything. That none of the traditions of Buddhism accept that. Okay? So in Buddhism, it's almost like, it's almost like the mind and the karma really, I don't know how to put it in English, it's really replaces the idea of God. Okay? We are created by our own mind. We are created by our own karma. So this mind and karma, these are not created by God. Okay? So that's why, because we are very much controlled by primarily, of course we can't just say, it's just about our own mind or karma. It depends on external causes and conditions too. But we are primarily controlled by mind and our own mind and karma. Okay? So that's why, it's neither the God, neither the gods of Buddha or even gurus, they're controlling our life. They can't control. Okay? So that's why Buddha can only teach us. It's not like he's controlling, because if he is controlling, there will be no problem in this world. At least there will be no problem in the monasteries. Right? He can't control. No one is controlling. But everyone has some level of influence. That's not just the God. Even a small animal, like a small puppy comes in this room, everyone will be like, where is this puppy is going to go? So even this small puppy has some influence. But if you talk about primary, influence, then it's our own mind and karma. Okay? So that's why we neither believe that we are created by God, nor believe that we are controlled by God. This is almost very clear. In the long term, it might be hard to say, but at least, if I want, at this very moment, I can fall down from here. If I want, I can come back. It's not like God or, if I want to come back, I have to come back. God is not going to put me back. Buddha is not going to put me back. I have to go, right? So we don't believe we are controlled or we are created. So sometimes people, for some people it's very hard to understand. Then they think, okay, if we are not created by someone, whoever that is, if we are not created by someone, then why? How can we exist? People who believe in God, it's very difficult to accept that idea. And also partly, now it's been some time since I've been talking. So is it clear, my voice, sound? Okay. Because if there are any problem, have to let me know, okay? I have got a secretary here. You can inform him. Okay. So partly because, so many things are created by people, so people think, okay, there must be someone who is creating everything. But then according to Buddhism, if all these things, in order for all these things to exist, we need someone to create it. In order for all these things to exist, we need someone to create it. Then it means if there's no creator, these things cannot exist. Then the logic goes, why he can exist? Then he too must be need a creator. Then who is that? It doesn't make any sense. So if there's if there's one person, it's almost like, to be born, we need parents. And that's the rule. That's the law of nature. And then we talk about the parents don't have parents. It doesn't make any sense. Right? And also because, so that's why either way, I don't want to go further, but that's why we don't, we don't believe in creation, creator and creation, these two ideas we don't believe. So that's why in Buddhism we have, even though we believe there are all types of gods, then mainly I think there are 3 types of gods, according to Buddhism. There's one type of God, which is also mentioned in the Hinduism. Buddhism also believes in the existence of these gods. But in Hinduism, they are gods, so they are worshipped. But then even according to Hinduism, sometimes they talk about Indra, sometimes they talk about Vishnu, sometimes they talk about Shiva, and so on. So even in Hinduism, sometimes it talks about the conflict that they have. Sometimes they have this conflict. Brahma says he's the most powerful. Shiva says, no, I am the most powerful. And then Vishnu says, I am the most powerful. So they have challenges and all these things. And so according to Buddhism, they are God. They're very powerful. But they are not perfect. They also have problems. They also have their own negative emotions. That's why they also have suffering. And more importantly, they neither know the nature of themselves nor know the nature of human life. And for Buddhism, the key to achieve happiness lies in the understanding of reality and more importantly, understanding the nature of human life, because we are human beings, right? So that's why for us, the important thing is not to understand the God, but to understand the human life. And so that's why the Buddha's teaching, whole point of Buddha's teachings is about how to live this human life. Okay? So that's why in Buddhism, we believe that they exist, but we don't go for refuge in them. Okay? They are not the object for us to refuge. Okay, take refuge. So there are these gods, imperfect, very powerful, have a great life, can perform miracles and so on, but they are not for us. They have their own problem. Okay? This is one type of God. And there are a lot of countless of gods. Okay? None of them created the universe. They all created their own existence, that's all. So among these gods, among these type of gods, there is the Brahma. According to Hinduism, he is the one who created the world. Am I saying correctly? World. Okay. And according to Buddhism, actually Brahma, it was the Brahma who had this delusion, thinking that he created everything. The reason, according to Buddhism, the reason why he had that delusion is because in his realm, in the beginning there was just Brahma himself. So he was in the deep meditation by closing his eyes, and at one point, he opened his eyes and there were other gods born in his realm. So he thought, okay, initially it was just me, now they are here, so maybe I have created them. They are my creation, and they also thought, okay, we are created by you. So that's how the whole, misunderstanding came, according to Buddhism, okay, but we never know what is the truth, okay? It's just a story. So anyway, even Brahma and all of them belongs to this kind of God. And then there's another type of God, which normally we prefer to call deity, because when we say God, it sounds like, the Christian or Muslim God. So usually we call deities. So these deities, like Chenese, Tara, Vajrapani, so these type of gods, usually we call deities, they actually live in the realms of God. Okay, realms of God. But because they are bodhisattvas, which means they are they don't have any negative emotions, they almost don't have any suffering, and they have so much ability to help beings, ability to bless us if you practice them, if you worship them, even though they are not really, even though they don't have the power to control us, but at least they have the power to help us, to bless us. So that's why we go for refuge in them. We practice them, we worship them, but it's not like they created us. And also because they are free from their negative emotions and negative karma, and also because their sole existence, the purpose of their sole existence, the sole purpose of their existence is to benefit sentient beings. So partly we practice them so that they can bless us, and partly we also practice them so that they can inspire us. Okay? We take them more as an inspiration. But these type of deities, they are more like type of deities which are more like a living being. Okay? More like a living being. So for Chinese, we have a story. How, what was Chinese before he become what is known as Chinese. And also like Amitabha. Like Amitabha, according to Sutra of Amitabha, he used to be a king. So Tara, she used to be a princess, and so on. So we have the stories of all of them. So they are like a living being. Okay, this is one type of God. Okay? And the reason why we pray to them is because they have the wisdom, they have the compassion, they don't have the negative emotions, they're not controlled by the karma. Okay, so that's why we pray to them, but they are not creator. Okay, that's the second type of God. Then there's the third type of God or deity, which is like Vajradhara and Kala Chakra. How many of you know Kala Chakra? Okay. Chakra Samvara? Okay. Which one do we have? It's okay, better not have. These are like, crazy. Okay. So some of these deities, like when we talk about Vajradhara, right? And also when we talk about Kala Chakra, Vajrayogini, there's the most famous female deity of Buddhism. How many of you know it? Okay, Vajrayogini. So these are the type of deities which they are not really like a living being. Okay? There's no story for them. Like for Vajrayogini, there's no such story as Who was Vajrayogini, How was her life before she became Vajrayogini? And what was Kala Chakra doing before he became Kala Chakra? There's no such thing. So these deities are more like the, more like the enlightened manifestation. Okay? Like Buddhas, they can appear in the forms of these deities. And because when we talk about Buddha, it actually means the state of our mind which is completely purified. Okay? Completely purified. And because our nature of our mind is such that it has so many good qualities: compassion, wisdom, loving kindness, and so on. And right now, because our good qualities are very limited, not so powerful, and when all these noble qualities are developed fully and reaches the, how to say it? Help me. Highest level to the full potential, and that is called enlightenment or Buddhahood. Okay? So that's why these deities actually, four arms, four hands, four arms, only represent, all these four hands or six hands or 8 hands, they all represent certain noble qualities of our mind. Okay? So that's why they don't exist separately. They're just the nature of this mind. So that's why when we achieve enlightenment, we also have that manifestation. We can also have all sorts of manifestation. Okay? So that's why these type of beings, they're not really living beings. They are just the manifestation of reality. They're just the manifestation of our own mind. They're just the manifestation of the enlightenment. Okay? And so, so for them, so to practice these type of deities, it's really important to understand that they are actually nothing different from our own mind. Okay, they don't exist separately. But I think for some types of deities, like Vajrasattva and like Tara, Manjushri, because they do exist on some level. They do exist as a living being on some level. Okay? So that's why I think it's important to understand them as, sometimes we talk about, okay, all of these deities are just of our own mind and they don't have any separate existence according to Buddhism, this is just mind. Then I think maybe we're failing to understand one point, which is that some of these deities, they have their own, their own life or something. Okay? And I think Vajrasattva is also one of them. It's not like, okay, we are praying to Vajrasattva, but actually it's just over our mind. It's not like, we are just praying to our mind. Some of these deities, they really have some level of existence. Okay? Okay, then, now if you talk about Vajrasattva, we have to understand that in Buddhism we have these so many deities. So let's say like Vajrapani. Okay, if anyone doesn't know Vajrapani, please raise your hand. Okay. Vajrapani, he is someone usually holding a Vajra in his hand. Okay, quite fat, blue color, holding Vajra, Ratwu. And this Vajrapani, he is actually also mentioned in the Pali tradition too. So he is mentioned in the Pali tradition, he is also mentioned in the Mahayana tradition, he is also mentioned in the Vajrayana tradition. Okay? And we know Maitreya. So Maitreya is considered as a bodhisattva now, and he is considered as the next Buddha, the fifth Buddha. Because according to Buddhism, Buddha Shakyamuni is the fourth Buddha. And the Maitreya will be fifth Buddha. So Maitreya, he is considered as kind of a deity. He is like a deity. He exists in heaven or somewhere. So he is someone, he is also mentioned in, someone who is mentioned in Pali tradition. He is also mentioned in the Mahayana tradition. It is also mentioned in the Vajrayana tradition. Okay? And then we have Chenrezig, Avalokiteshvara. In Pali tradition, he is not mentioned in the Pali tradition, but he is a very important bodhisattva in Mahayana tradition. And in some of the Vajrayana tradition, he is considered as a deity or someone who is already a Buddha, but manifesting as a bodhisattva. Okay? Avalokiteshvara. And Tara, I think she's not mentioned in Pali tradition. And I don't think she is mentioned in any sutras. Even though she is very much like a Bodhisattva Sutra tradition, but she is mainly mentioned in the Vajrayana tradition. And the first text that mentions of Tara is actually the Tantra of Manjushri. Okay, there's a Tantra called Manjushri Kalpa something. Manjushri, ritual text of Manjushri or something. Ritual Tantra of Manjushri. Okay, then some of these deities like a Vajrayogini, okay, so these deities are mentioned in the Mahayana Sutra tradition, and then there are some deities like Kalachakra, Vajrayogini. These are only mentioned in the Vajrayana tradition. They are not mentioned in Pali Sutras, they are not mentioned in Mahayana Sutras, they are only mentioned in the Vajrayana tradition. So that's why they are considered as the deities of Vajrayana tradition. Okay? So now if you ask the question, okay, which tradition that this Vajrasattva belongs? Can anyone guess? You can just say? Okay? Anyone else? You can just say, even you make mistake, there's no punishment. Sorry? Huh?
All three.
Okay. All three? Vajrayana tradition? Okay, he's mentioned only in the Vajrayana tradition. He's not mentioned in Pali tradition, he's not mentioned in, he's not mentioned in Mahayana Sutra tradition, he's only mentioning in the Vajrayana tradition. So that's why he is a deity of Vajrayana tradition. Okay? And then Vajrayana tradition, usually we talk about 4 classes of Tantra. Okay, 4 classes of Tantra. It's quite complicated, I don't want to go in detail. There's something called Kriya Tantra, which is really like the basic. The practices are very simple. Usually I think the practices that you do, maybe I think the Chenrezig, Avalokiteshvara might belong to this category. Those people the scholars who study this Vajrayana tradition, their idea is that first, when there was Tantra in Tantric practices in Buddhism, first there was the Kriya Tantra, and then when it got developed, then it became Charya Tantra, there was the Charya Tantra. When it got developed, then there was the Yoga Tantra, and Anuttara Yoga Tantra was like the highest development of Buddhist Tantras. But for us, for the Buddhist practitioners, this is like the basic practice, this is like higher practice, this one is even higher, and this one, what we call Anuttara Yoga Tantra, which means highest yoga, or highest practice of Tantra. Okay, it's not about development; it's about the different levels of the practice. Okay, so usually, many of these deities simple deities like Tara, Amitayu Buddha, Medicine Buddha, they belong to this first class of Tantra, which is called Action Tantra. Action Tantra. So many of the deities that are popular in China, Japan, Korea, and many of the statues that we find in China or in India, they belong to this first class. And there are so many deities, but the practices of these deities are very simple. And the way to practice these deities is also very simple. Just, usually even the tradition of visualizing ourselves as the deity doesn't come from this tradition. Okay? According to this tradition, you're just an ordinary human being, ordinary person. In front of you, there's the deity. So you pray to the deity, make offerings, recite the mantra, and then goodbye. Okay? As simple as that. But in Vajrayana tradition, this one and the highest one, these two have the most number of deities and practices. These two don't have many. Okay? This is called Kriya Tantra. Then there is something called Charya Tantra, which has only one practice. Okay? But historically speaking, it's very important because it was practiced widely in India, it was practiced widely in China, it has been still practiced in Japan. It has become one of the most important tantras of Japan. The main Buddha of this tantra is called Mahavairotsana. Okay? So he's a deity who is white in color, has 4 faces, which means he's looking into 4 directions. 4 directions. And in Tibet, even in Tibet, around 7th, 8th, 9th century, this tantra was one of the most important tantras of Tibet. So that's why many of the old statues that we find in Tibet is actually this Buddha. Mahavairotsana. So this is but this one is very important because historically speaking, in this tantra, then it talks about how to visualize ourselves as the deity. The idea of visualizing ourselves as the deity comes from this tantra. But in this tantra, when we practice this tantra, then also we visualize ourselves as the deity. It's more like we visualize ourselves as Tara, and then we also visualize a Tara in front of us. So the real Tara dissolves into this, not into me.
So which tantra is that?
Charya Tantra. Usually they translate it conduct or conduct Tara or something. You can call Charya Tantra.
Charya.
Yes. Charya is a Sanskrit. It means conduct, behavior, something. Okay, so usually, sometimes we also say in the first class of Tantra, it's like the deity is like the boss and we are like the servant. Okay? Deity is over there and we just recite mantras, make offerings. You're the greatest one, whatever. So in the second one, we practice the deities like friends. It's like I'm here, I'm the Tara, and Tara is also here. So we're just sitting next to each other. So real Tara is dissolving to you, and then I focus at the heart of this Tara. There's this, moon disk, and then maybe the mantra. Then I focus on the mantra. And then just, recite the mantra, and then finally, goodbye. Okay? But because in this class of Tantra, there's the idea of visualizing ourselves as the deity, so that's why, culturally speaking, and also in terms of, for the researchers, they would say this Tantra is also very, very important. Okay? Because in this Tantra, it talks about the idea of visualizing ourselves as the deity. Okay? Because visualizing ourselves as the deity is not taught in Theravada tradition, is not taught in Mahayana Sutra tradition. In Mahayana Sutra tradition, it talks about the possibility of becoming Buddha one day, but it doesn't talk about you think of yourself as Buddha. That is too much. Okay? So it's like an advanced practice. Then there is the third class of Tantra, which is called Yoga Tantra. And there are not so many practices of it, But it's also a very advanced practice. It's a very advanced practice. So in these classes of Tantra, we then it's not so much about there are two deities. It's just we always say we are the deity. We are the deity. No deity in front of me. Just I am the deity. And when I visualize that the deity is coming to me, the real deity is coming to me from the pure light, it dissolves into me, not the one in front of me. Sometimes there are cases where we have to visualize the deity in front of me, but usually it's just I am the deity. Okay? It's usually I am the deity. So this kind of practice, it's very advanced. Usually we have this tradition of giving empowerment in Tibetan Buddhism, like a ritual initiation. Okay? It's a little bit like how to say, baptize or something? Baptism? A little bit like that, because pouring water, all these things. I think all of them, a little bit similar. And that's also, even for this, baptism people do only once, right? You have to baptize only once, right? But in Vajrasattva tradition, you can baptize anytime. As long as there's, Lama to do that for you. So for this, we have this initiation. And for this initiation, this class of Tantra, usually it takes at least 5 days or 7 days. It takes a long day, from morning to 9, whole day. Lama will be so tired. People who receive this initiation will also be so tired. So that's why it's very difficult to get this initiation. It takes a long time. And the visualization is very complicated too. Usually in the first class of Tantra, we visualize maybe just one deity, maybe 4 or 5 deity, and also when you visualize them, it's like in the center there's this Buddha, on the right side this one, left side this one, like that. It's very simple. But in this, then east, west, south, north, and again in the east, west, south, north, then again east, west, south, north. There are around 1,000 something deities. So each of these deities, it's what to say. In some way, it's also, I find it quite interesting, because in this Tantra, it's like, some people say this is the Tantra of royal family. Because in this Tantra, you are the king, you have the queen, you have the secretary, you have the people who brings tea and serve for you. You have all the attendants who are playing music and everything, okay? Everything is in this. So that's why people say it's really, really for like a royal family. This is the grandest Tantra, okay? This is called Yoga Tantra, which is the third class one. There are not many Tantras, but the ones that we have is quite extensive, okay? Quite extensive. Then there's what we call the highest Tantra, highest yoga. In Sanskrit we call it Anuttara Yoga Tantra. It's the highest one. So in these, usually, people think about Tibetan Buddhism, they think about, okay, they worship this weird type of deities, naked, wrathful, You got all sorts of deities. In some of the deities, they have, in one of the practices of Vajrayogini, she has cut her own head and then holding it. All these things are too much for most of the people. So all these crazy things, I'm afraid to use the word crazy, but for many people it would look crazy and should really be kept secret. It should not be displayed in the shrine hall and so on. Usually in Kagyu tradition we don't do that because it's not good. It's something that we practice. If you have devotion, it's really, really powerful. That is true. But if you don't know how to practice it, it can be quite crazy. You might drive you crazy too. And there's no point of showing it to other people. Okay, it's not an art. It's a meditation. And people post it on Facebook, whatever. It's not that good. It's not very good. Okay, so all these things comes from this highest level of Tantra. So Kala Chakra Tantra, Chakra Samvara Tantra, He Vajra Tantra, Guhayaja, Samaja Tantra, name it. The important, usually for the Tibetan Buddhism, this is the most important Tantra. So these comes from the highest Tantra, okay? Naked ones, wrathful ones, all these things. Okay, now I have a question. Now what do you think? From which class of Tantra that the Vajrasattva comes? Kriya Tantra.
Also Anutara.
Anuttara Yoga Tantra? Okay. Anyone else? Can you guess? Charya Tantra?
I think 4 of them.
Huh?
Can be 4 of them.
4 of them.
All of them.
Okay, all of them. Okay. So now I think, if somebody else gives an option, at least one person will be right. Because there are different 4 or 5 options, right? Okay. So I will announce that. The Vajrasattva is actually, partly you are right. Partly you are right because usually they say that Vajrasattva is taught in all classes, all these 4 classes of Tantra. Okay? They say that Vajrasattva is taught in all of these 4 classes of Tantra. Okay? But I had the experience of doing a little bit of research about this Vajrasattva, because I was really interested about it. Because for a long time I didn't know who he is. I know one Khenpo, and he once asked me, who is Vajrasattva? First I thought it's a stupid question. Vajrasattva is Vajrasattva. What do you mean by that? Who's Tara? Tara is Tara, right? But I was like, okay, who really he is? What is his significance? So that's why, I always kept it in mind because, I ask people, they don't know, I don't find much information in the text, so I really I always kept it in my mind. And then at one point I really took it seriously and read Tantras and so on. So my understanding is, he's not mentioned in Kriya Tantra, the first class of Tantra. I don't think there's any text, authentic, told by Buddha, because usually when we talk about Tantra, there are the Tantras which are believed to be told by Buddha himself, and then there are also practices or commentaries written by Indian masters. So written by Indian masters, sometimes they mix everything, so it's very hard to say. Okay, but at least there are set of Tantras, set of Tantras which belong to the first group, believed to be
7 Tantras.
a set of. Okay. Yeah, it's very good, okay? If you don't understand something, you just ask me, okay? My confidence or self-esteem will not be in danger. I have a strong, stable delusion that my English is good. Okay? If you question my English, I will think, okay, maybe you speak another accent. Anyway, because if you don't understand, there's no point, right? Okay, so if anything is not very clear or something, you just ask me, okay? If the words I'm using or the idea that I'm saying, just ask me, okay? Okay, so in the first set of Tantras, it doesn't mention about Vajrasattva at all. Then my understanding is, in second class of Tantra, which is called Charya Tantra, usually when they practice this second class of Tantra, they do practice Vajrasattva. Okay? But in Tantra itself, it mentions Vajrasattva, but my understanding is in this, when it talks about Vajrasattva, it doesn't mean the Vajrasattva, the deity. Okay? It only means Because in Mahayana Buddhism, in Sutra tradition, Bodhisattva means, Bodhi means enlightenment, Sattva means someone who is committed to it, someone who is dedicated to it. So when we say Bodhisattva, it means someone who has the, usually we talk about for Bodhisattva, there are two objects. Am I saying correctly? Object. Okay? One is to achieve the enlightenment, the other one is to benefit sentient beings. So there are two goals, right? So that's why they're called Bodhisattva. Sattva means courageous enough to benefit sentient beings. Bodhi means their goal is to achieve the enlightenment. Okay? So these, all of them are called Bodhisattvas. So in Charya Tantra, this Tantra, when it talks about Vajrasattva, when it uses the term Vajrasattva, there's even a commentary, I read it. And then according to the commentary, when it says Vajrasattva, it only means the Bodhisattvas of Vajrayana tradition. It means the practitioner, okay? Not particularly a deity. Okay? That is the Vajrasattva. Vajrasattva. But so if my understanding is correct, then Charya Tantra, it doesn't really mention the Vajrasattva, but usually in the rituals, we do practice Vajrasattva. Okay, so at least Vajrasattva is practiced in the Charya Tantra. But in Yoga Tantra, when it comes to Yoga Tantra, the third class, then Vajrasattva is really one of the most important deity. Okay? It's almost like he is the second most important deity of this class of Tantra. Okay? And here, it's, I feel like, then when we try to understand Vajrasattva, it's really important to understand, just understanding Vajrasattva, saying, okay, so he is mentioned in the Yoga Tantra. It's not enough. We have to really understand from where all these ideas are coming, because it seems like he has been really evolved a lot. It seems like his journey, his development of ideas, his role is a long story. That's what I understand. So in Pali tradition, earlier I talked about Vajrapani. Vajrapani, sometimes he even, I think, when the Greece and ancient India, they had cultural connection. Then these Greek people, they started making statues of Buddha and so on. At that time, some of them, they made the statues of Vajrapani. And then they made, when they built the statues of Vajrapani, they actually used the idea of Thor, Greek god Thor, the one who is Thor. Okay? But you got it. He's in this one of the Avenger movie, right? The Thor. They identified Vajrapani as the Thor, holding a hammer, saying that it's Vajrapani. But Vajrapani is holding a Vajra. So in some way, I feel like Vajrapani, because in Indian mythology, Vajra is actually the weapon of Indra. He's holding that weapon. He's holding that weapon. Because Vajra is considered as like indestructible, something that cannot be destroyed by anything, but that can destroy anything else. So that's why it's considered as very powerful. And then I remember, right, the Theravadan tradition, the most ancient tradition of Buddhism, it talks about Vajrapani. So when it talks about Vajrapani, they don't talk so much about him, but usually he's like an invisible God who's always protecting Buddha. He's like a bodyguard of Buddha. There's even a story that, some some masters came from, who belonged to another tradition. They came to see Buddha and then challenged Buddha, saying that you are claiming to be Buddha, and what evidence do you have? You claim to know everything. Do you really know? I have questions. They try to, fool Buddha, and so on. So Buddha, this is mentioned in one of the Pali Sutta. So it says okay, so Buddha, he managed to answer this question, all these questions, and then finally Buddha said, wait a minute, now I have a question for you. And then Buddha said, you're not allowed to tell lies, because if you tell lies, I have this bodyguard, Vajrapani, he will destroy you. So Vajrapani is don't lie, because if you lie, I will break your head into 1,000 pieces by using this Vajra. He almost lied or something. So anyway, he is mentioned as a personal bodyguard of Buddha. But he is not a real human being. He's just, whenever Buddha needs, he can come. So in Mahayana Sutra tradition, sometimes it also says this idea of Dharma protector, like Mahakala and so on, like in Tibetan Buddhism, for us it's very important. We do it every day. We don't do meditation every day, but we do Mahakala Puja every day. I don't like that idea that much. Dharma protectors are important, but I think meditation and all these things are far more important than Dharma protectors. But the reason why we think Dharma protectors are so important, because it's actually because we want good luck. We have desires, we have anger. So that's why sometimes, we, instead of dealing with the desire or anger, we want whatever we want to get. And for that we don't want obstacle, and for that we do is these Dharma protectors and so on. But actually the main purpose of these Dharma protectors is actually to remove obstacles for our practice. We can't use these Dharma protectors to harm somebody, or to do something bad for ourselves. Okay? So all these Dharma protectors, actually this whole tradition comes from Vajrayana tradition. It's not in the Mahayana tradition. It's not in the Pali tradition. So in the Pali tradition and in Mahayana tradition, usually it's the Vajrapani who is serving as Dharma protector. So sometimes in some of these Mahayana sutras, he talks about Vajrapani, saying that someone who follows this path, he or she will be protected by Vajrapani. There will be 1,000 Vajrapanis following him or her. Okay? So there is this Vajrapani. So he is mentioned in the, Pali tradition. And then in Mahayana Sutra, especially there's a sutra called Avatamsaka Sutra, which is very popular in China. And there's this prayer called Prayer of Noble Conduct, which is read during Kagyu Molam. In Tibetan tradition, we consider it as the king of all the aspirations. So this prayer actually comes at the end of this sutra. Usually it's a sutra which has 4 volumes in Tibetan Buddhist canon, and it has 8 different sutras in it. Okay? So in this sutra, it talks about, in Theravada tradition, it doesn't talk about, other Buddhas or other Pure Lands. Is it clear? Like there was this Buddha Shakyamuni, he passed away. Now they don't talk about, there's other Buddha called, like Amitabha Buddha's Pure Land. They don't talk about other Buddhas. They don't talk about many Buddhas. There was just one Buddha, he passed away, that's all. Now in Mahayana Buddhism, there are a lot of Buddhas. There are a lot of Pure Lands. Okay, this is a Mahayana tradition. And then among them, especially in this sutra, then it talks about this idea of having, countless galaxies. And then it talks about the shapes of certain galaxies, saying that certain galaxy looks like, like round, how to say? Whatever. All sorts of shapes. Okay, all sorts of shapes, round, square, anything. And then he says, there are countless galaxies, and if someone has to look from maybe so much far away, and look at this collection of galaxies, all of them, it's actually in the bone, they have the shape of a Buddha. They have a shape of a Buddha. And then he talks about, it's like a Buddha. He's in a meditation form. And then his whole body is actually made of different galaxies. The countless galaxies. And then his hand, there's something like 25 galaxies or something. And then on the 13th, the 13th galaxy is actually where we are now. It's our galaxy, this Milky Way galaxy. Okay, this is on the 13th. And then each of these galaxies, the countless Pure Lands and countless Buddhas and so on. Okay? So there is this idea. And then this Buddha, the main Buddha, is called Buddha Vajrasattva. And he has a chief disciple called Bodhisattva Samye. The Samye is also quite popular in China too. They worship him. Usually he's sitting on an elephant, right? Yeah. Manjushri usually on a lion. Samye is on an elephant. Okay? Samye. The Samye is told as such powerful that when Buddhas of other Pure Lands, they come to receive teachings from this Buddha Vajrasattva, who is actually made of countless universes or galaxies. Because of the power of Buddha, many of these bodhisattvas, even though they're great, shining and so on, but when they come close to this Buddha Vajrasattva, all of them, they lose their light. They become dim. They look little ugly. Okay? But then this Samye, who is sitting on the right side of the Buddha, he is still shining. He's still magnificent. And then quite often, it's not the Buddha, but the Samye who is giving teachings. Okay? So that's why he is considered as almost the king of bodhisattvas. Okay? But that is taught in the Sutra tradition, Mahayana Sutra tradition, especially this sutra called Avatamsaka Sutra. And then the second class, when I talked about 4 classes of Tantra, first is Kriya or Action Tantra, second is Charya Tantra. In this Charya Tantra, what happened is the Buddha, he is about to give teachings, and then he calls Samadhi to come. And then Samadhi comes with all his retainers, all his attendants and so on. And when he comes, then Buddha, he gives the empowerment by giving up Vajra in the hand of Samadhi. Now, Samadhi is transformed into Vajrapani. Now he shows the power of this Vajra and so on. Okay? In one of the sutra, I think, one of the Tantra, I think, I'm not sure. There's even a story like, the Vajrapani, he's always carrying this Vajra in his hand. At some point, some of the disciples of Buddha, they asked him, why are you always carrying this? What is it? And then Buddha told him that, okay, you can know it. Okay, he told the Vajrapani, put it down. Let them check it, let them see. So all these great bodhisattvas and all the great arhats who have, limitless powers and miracles and so on, everyone trying to live it, but nobody can live it. Like, stuck there. There's also same stories like for the Thor, right? So then they said, okay, then the Buddha said, okay, this is the power of his samadhi. Only he can move it. And then Vajrapani, he can everything. He can throw anything. Okay? So then what happened is now the idea is Vajrapani and Samadhi, merge into one. And then after that, in Tantra, Samye Bhadra doesn't play any important role. It's always the Vajrapani. It's always the Vajrapani. Vajrapani is always there. He's the one who requests for the Tantras. He's the one who protects the practitioners. He's the one who removes the obstacles. He's the one who is, carrying all the activities of Buddhas and so on. So there's this Vajrapani, okay? This whole thing, this event took place in the second class of Tantra, right? Second class of Tantra. And then in Yoga Tantra, then there is the Vajrasattva, who is actually combination of Samye Bhadra and Vajrapani all together. Okay? Samye Bhadra and Vajrapani all together. So he's more like a combination of not just one deity, but combination of three deities. Okay? That is Vajrasattva. Okay. And then, so then in this third class of Tantra, Yoga Tantra, which is called Yoga Tantra, this Buddha Vairotsana is actually in the form of universe. What he does is that first he manifests the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas and so on, manifest all of them. And once they have already once he has manifested all of these Buddhas and Bodhisattvas and so on, then maybe he disappeared or something, but either way, all these Bodhisattvas and Buddhas, now they go to the Vajrasattva. They go to the Vajrasattva and tell him, because you are the most important one here, so please give teaching. And then he says, okay, I will give teaching. And then he create this mandala. Okay? He create this mandala, and then he manifest all these deities that I talked earlier, 1,000 deities and so on in one particular mandala. That grand mandala, he manifests it, and then he teaches this Tantra. So he is also the creator of this mandala, and he is also the teacher of this Tantra. Okay, he is also the teacher of this Tantra. So it's more like, he's the one who really does all the job in this Tantra. Okay, he's like, my understanding is that in this Tantra, it's like Buddha Vairotsana, he's like the president, and Vajrasattva is like the prime minister. He's doing all the job. It's almost like everything is done by Vajrasattva. And in this class of Tantra, then what happens is, because once we visualize ourselves as the deity, then the real deities are invited from the Pure Land, and then we ourselves and the deities are merged with mudras. Okay? Like the mind of the deity and myself are merged. The body of the deity and myself are merged. The speech of my speech and the deity's speech are merged and so on. Mind, body, speech, and one is the activity. There's something called 4 mudras. So we are like really like merged. Like the deity is facing to me, and deity is happy with me, and then deity wants to, merge into us, and then we become inseparable with this seal. Okay? Mudra, showing like certain mudras. I'm not good at mudras, okay? We do certain mudras. There are like hundreds of mudras. So we do all this mudra. They do all these things. Chanting one mantra, like these, a lot of these, just a lot. Okay? There's a lot of them. Sometimes it's very hard to see the differences. It's like one mudra should be like this. Okay, there are many mudras. The basic idea is that we are almost like merging this deity and us with this mudra. So the idea is that, okay, these are just ideas, okay? Of course, for the practitioner, it's not just an idea, but we can understand as idea. So the idea is that, the deity will not leave us until we finish the whole meditation. Because deity has this commitment to remain with us as long as they are still with us with these mudras. Okay? And then at the end, then these deities, then we also do mudras, so that, we kind of break that seal, and then the deities are goodbye. But how to say it in a polite way? They are allowed to leave. But before that, of course, we make offerings and prayers and so on, and then saying, okay, please leave. Okay? Okay, so after these deities are gone, then the text also, the Tantra also says, okay, now any negative karmas that you might have done by not doing the rituals properly, not doing the visualization properly, not doing the meditation properly, if anything is missing or whatever, practice Vajrasattva and recite his mantra at the end of it. Okay? At the end of it. So we now know that Vajrasattva is actually, he's actually the one who created the whole mandala, the one who told the whole tantra. He's the teacher, he's the creator. Okay? So because of that reason, what happens is both of these yoga tantra, the two highest tantras, usually I talked about this initiation, right? Initiation, giving empowerment. So the giving empowerment can only be given by someone who is appointed as the teacher, which in Vajrayana tradition we call Vajracharya, Vajra master. Okay, Vajra master. So these days, there's if I want to, somebody asked me to, please, can you give me empowerment? I can't give it. I have to get permission from my master, from my teacher. Okay? And so these days, in a very informal way, if this Lama says, okay, maybe you can give, then we just give. But in the ritual itself, there's a special empowerment. There's a special empowerment which is only given when somebody is qualified enough to become a Vajra master. So these days what we do is we just give the empowerment, but still you can't act like a Vajra master for the time being. You have to practice. Okay? So we don't really use that as a formal way. Okay? So to be a Vajra teacher, or Vajra master, there's almost in each of these important empowerments, there's one empowerment, there are 5 empowerments called the empowerments of disciples. For these empowerments, the water will be poured from the vase. So usually these days we don't pour on the head because it will be quite messy. So we just drink it. And then crown will be given. In the past in India, the crown will be really given to you. But these days we just put on the head. And there are also maybe I think in India I think you are even given a what kind of whole beautiful robe. But these days we just put a silken cloth or something like this. Everything's just a symbol these days. In India, when you are a Vajra disciple, you are giving 5 empowerments, and then when you are appointed as the Vajra master, then you are given 3 empowerments. So when you receive this Vajra master, okay, when you are qualified enough to become a Vajra master, at that time the empowerment that you are given is actually the empowerment of Vajrasattva. Okay, then at that point you have to visualize yourself as Vajrasattva, and then a Vajra will be given, a bell will be given. These are the 2 instruments of Vajrasattva, and then certain mudra will be done to you. Okay? Now you become Vajrasattva, which means now you can create the mandala through your visualization, which means you can do the pujas of these advanced practices. Because when you do pujas of these advanced practices of Vajrayana tradition, you have to create the whole mandala. And then you have to think you are in the center of that mandala. Now you're doing all these pujas and so on. And that is allowed only if you have that permission. You can't just create mandala. You're not that special enough to create mandala. We have to. Okay? So this is the idea. So because the role of Vajrasattva is to create this mandala and to give teachings. So that's why the role of Vajra master is the same, is to create mandala, to give empowerment to people, to give initiation to disciples, and to teach Tantra. So that's why when someone receives this empowerment of Vajra master, they receive this empowerment of Vajrasattva. So therefore, since then we have this something called commitment of Vajra master, which is that we should never be inseparated from, we should never live over Vajra and Bell, because this represents this Samye. Okay? Usually Vajra, it represents the wisdom, and usually Vajra represents the, compassion, and the wisdom. The bell represents the wisdom or something. But in Vajrasattva, Vajra means the wisdom, and Sattva means the compassion. Sattva means the compassion. Okay? So either way, after receiving that empowerment, and then we should keep this commitment of performing the role of a Vajrasattva. Okay? So that's why this tradition empowerment, even though it's first taught in the third class of Tantra, but it's also practiced in the highest class of Tantra too. In each of these empowerments, there's the empowerment of disciple, there's the empowerment of master, and whenever the empowerment of master is given, they're giving it by, with this practice of Vajrasattva. So it's almost like, as long as, anyone who have received this advanced empowerments, we all have this commitment of playing a role as Vajrasattva, okay, according to Vajrayana tradition. So that's why, when we think about Vajrasattva, if you think about Vajrasattva as someone whose only role is to purify the negativities, then we are kind of undermining his importance. Because his role is actually a very more bigger thing. He's really almost close to the God, creator, almost at least he's the creator of mandala. He's the teacher. And then, in the end, when we finish our practices, if any mistakes we have done, we can also rely upon him, because he is the boss. So in this tantra, especially this third class tantra, it talks about, in the end, it says the Vajrasattva, his body is the body of all the Buddhas. And his mantra is the mantra of all the Buddhas, because he is the one who is creating the whole mandala. He's teaching the whole tantra. So that's why he represents all of them. So that's why any mistakes is done, it's almost like, in this center, when something happens, we ask Lama Dzong, and Lama Dzong says, it's okay, it's okay. So it's because he is doing everything. So that's why he can forgive. He can purify. So that's why his visualization is very powerful. His mantra is very powerful, because it's the mantra of all the Buddhas. Okay? So then, at one point in the text, he says the benefit of practicing Vajrasattva will be that even the most serious negative karmas can be purified, and one can become like a Vajrasattva. Okay? Samye ngambu chebayam dorji simban raborji chakja damji dorji tamchi drumji tezun means. Okay, so then there, so in this tantra, when you talk about Vajrasattva, it's a very simple version of Vajrasattva. Vajrasattva with 2 hands. And I think maybe doesn't even have concert. Okay? Concert. Why? Okay? But then these days we also practice, one of the practice, quite popular version one, is the practice of Vajrasattva with the concert, right? Concert. And this one actually comes from one of the tantra of Chakra Samvara. Okay? Chakra Samvara is a black, sometimes blue, 4 heads, 12 arms. Chakra Samvara is very popular. It's one of the main tantra for Kagyu lineage. Okay? So there's one tantra, it also have few different tantras, and one of the tantra is called Abhidhana Tantra. Abhidhana Tantra. And then in this it talks about a few different versions of Vajrasattva. One of them, I think in the 24th chapter, I think, it talks about one Vajrasattva with a concert, white in color, and 2 hands, and with the concert. So that's why these days, the one that most people in Tibetan Buddhism regard this as Kagyu Sakya Nyingma, what they do is actually comes from that tantra. Okay, even though the Vajrasattva it comes from the 3rd class of tantra, but the practice that we do these days mainly from this tantra. Okay, mainly from this tantra. And actually, there are a few different versions of Vajrasattva. In Kalachakra Tantra, it also talks about one version of Vajrasattva, which has maybe 3 faces or something, 6 arms or something. But the one that we do these days, it comes from this Tantra of Chakra Sambhava, which comes from the 4th class of Tantra. Okay? And there's this belief that I think it's, I don't remember in which. Okay. There's one text called Nyingpo Jing, Ornament of the Essence or something, written by someone called Manjir Kirti, one Indian great master. And in his text, then he says, like, if you recite Vajrasattva 21 times in a day, then almost the negative karmas that you have accumulated on that day will be purified. Okay?
What's the name of the teacher again?
Manjur Kirti, I think. Manju Kirti.
Manju?
Kirti. Yes, Kirti. Manjur Kirti. And then he says if you recite it 100,000 times, almost all the negative karmas will become purified. Okay? And it's not just a, tradition. There are really so many people. Because Vajrasattva is practiced in all traditions of Vajrayana Buddhism. It's practiced in Nepal. There's so many stages of Vajrasattva in Nepal too, because in Nepal they also practice Vajrayana tradition. In Tibet, Vajrasattva is practiced in all of the traditions, everyone. It's almost like before you're not supposed to practice any Vajrayana tradition before you practice Vajrasattva. And then usually when they practice Vajrasattva, if you reach 100,000 times, usually people see a sign. Usually, it's quite common. But I think if we have too much expectation, maybe we won't see. But there are really a lot of cases. Sometimes, it's not just about dream. The health get improved, and at least people see some special dreams. There is a sign. There is a sign. So that's why for me, I think it's not just about our own mind. They really do exist on some level, And And also, it's we have this tradition that whenever we do pujas, because actually this tradition comes from this third class of Tantra, which is called Yoga Tantra, that at the end of the puja, at the end of the meditation, at the end of the session, we should recite the mantra of Vajrasattva. So for this reason, in Tibet, there's the tradition that whenever puja is completed or anything, we always recite the mantra of Vajrasattva. And it is for this reason, Jalsa Rinpoche, he said, we can practice Vajra in the tradition without relying upon like any other deities. Like we can practice Kala Chakra without relying upon Chakra Sambhava. We can practice Chakra Sambhava without relying upon Kala Chakra. We can achieve enlightenment simply by practicing Kala Chakra. But then without relying upon Vajrasattva, it's impossible. Because we can't purify all these negativities, especially the negativities that we might accumulate by practicing wrongly, in a wrong way. Okay? So that's why all these, almost all the sadhanas, the ritual text of all these Vajrayana deities composed by Indian masters, usually they are very short. It doesn't even say much about you should give rise to bodhicitta or whatever. But usually they always say practice Vajrasattva. So in this way, what we can understand is, like yesterday when I talked about Sutra of 3 sections, we can understand in the Sutra sections, in the Sutra tradition, nothing is more powerful than the Sutra of 3 sections to purify negative karmas. And in Vajra, in the tradition, nothing is more powerful than Vajrasattva. Okay? So people usually think he is the deity of purification, but he is actually way more than that. And from this we can understand his significance, his story is actually huge, vast. Okay?
When shall I use one or the other?
Sorry?
When shall I use one or the other?
2 of them?
No.
Sutra
When
of
shall
3.
I use the 3 section?
Sutra of 3 sections, I think, because it's the tradition that, in many of the sutras, the Sutra of 3 sections is something that Buddha himself said should recite. So, idea is, if possible, 2 times in the morning, 2 times at night. Okay, but if we can't, at least try to chant once in a day, at the end of the day, because to purify all the negative things that we might have done in our daytime. And if we do Vajrasattva together, then I think first do the Sutra of 3 sections, and after that, doing Vajrasattva will be more relevant. Okay? Thank you. Have a nice day. Enjoy your time.